This is exciting, isn't it?
Here we go, guys, in 5, 4, 3.
Here we go.
It's time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Thank you for good programming, and I appreciate the content and really enjoyed every moment.
It's a privilege to have you on your station and listen. It's good stuff. It's very educational.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Happy almost 4th of July. Thanks for being here this Friday, July 3rd. That echoing sound you may hear is the fact that the studio, all the managers, everybody who could possibly be gone today is gone today. So Lady B and I, the inmates, are running the asylum today. Lady B and I are going to do whatever we want. We have the power. No one will rein us in. Okay, good thing I got that out of my system. Did you hear the weather report that we might have storms? I don't know where you live, but where I live, it's been storming for quite a while. And there were wild storms last night, a lot of lightning, a lot of loud thunder. You can always tell when the thunder's bad because our newest puppy likes to sleep in front of the front door where it's nice and cool. But man, when the thunder comes, he runs right upstairs and throws himself into bed with us, which he did last night. And that's okay. He needs his mommy to hold him and tell him everything's okay. And she did. So I guess for those of you who have pets, the good news, if we're going to find a silver lining in the fact that this is going to be a really, really rainy weekend, your pets will only have to worry about thunder. They won't have to worry about fireworks. Is that a plus? Can we turn these storms into a silver lining for somebody? I don't know about you, but my weather app says all weekend long, it's just going to rain, rain, rain. And today and tomorrow, it's not just going to rain, it's going to be thunderstorms. So stay dry, have fun, stay safe, and enjoy this hot, wet 4th of July in your air-conditioned house or your air-conditioned apartment or your air-conditioned condo. And if you don't have air conditioning, I would say find somebody you know who does and go to their house. There is still a teeny-weeny itty bit of news today. Remember, we were waiting for Todd Blanche to respond to a judge's order that said that by Thursday, July 2nd, he had to release all of the Epstein files unredacted, or he had to come into court and explain why he could not do that. And the judge also stipulated, by the way, when you come to court, if you decide to make that argument that you can't do it, you better not repeat any argument that has come before this court before, because we've already dismissed those. So if you've got a new reason why you can't do this, let us know. And as I predicted, he waited till the very last minute, and he told the court, I know you're going to be shocked by this, that he could not release more documents. Katie Fang, who along with the Public Integrity Project had gone to court, and they're the ones who got the judge's ruling that said, yeah, you're right. Congress passed this law that everything needed to be released by December 20th or something like that. And they didn't do it. So, yeah, they got to do it. Okay. Here's what Katie Fang posted after Todd Blanche filed a response with the judge. Todd Blanche has responded to Judge Sullivan's order on my preliminary injunction, and it's more deflection, bull poop, and attempts to conceal. To be clear, This is not even close to being a satisfactory or compliant response by any stretch of the imagination. And you can bet your bottom dollar we're going to the mat on this. Brendan Ballou is the CEO of the Public Integrity Project. They were the activist organization that joined with Katie Fang to bring that suit or bring that a motion before Judge Sullivan that, hey, we are journalists and we have been harmed because we can't do our job and inform the public because Todd Blanche hasn't complied with this congressional order. And the judge said, you know what? You're right. And so that's when the judge issued the order that by yesterday, Todd Blanche had to release everything in an unredacted form or give a darn good reason why. Todd Blanche said, can't do that. Can't do that, Judge. We've just heard what Katie Fang's response was. Brendan Ballou, who is the Public Integrity Project CEO, that's the activist organization that joined with Katie Fang in bringing this motion before Judge Sullivan. He posted a video explaining what he thought of this ruling and where they were going to go next. Listen to Brendan Ballou.
So the Department of Justice responded to the court's order in our Epstein Files case, and surprise, surprise, they say that they can't produce all these documents because they are protecting victims' identities. That's implausible for a whole bunch of reasons, but I just want to give you a couple of examples of the really wild legal reasoning that they've got going on here. So, for instance, one of the things the judge ordered is you have to start reviewing all the non-English language documents in the Epstein Files. The government says, well, we alerted Congress that we weren't going to do it, and Congress didn't do anything, so we don't actually have to follow the law here. That's not how laws work. Just because you say you're not going to follow the law doesn't mean you get to. I think one of the really interesting things here is that the filing was signed only by Stanley Woodward, who's, depending on how you count, the number 2 or number 3 official in the Department of Justice right now. So no career Department of Justice lawyers signed on to this, which means that this is getting handled entirely at the top and entirely by political folks, which I think tells us that they are taking this very seriously and that they are very scared of what could happen here. So we are planning to respond. We'll let you know once we do, but the fight continues to get these documents revealed.
And this is not a group that's going to give up. I don't know that we will ever see this happen, especially since it was the number 2 or number 3 person who signed off on this statement before the judge. But somebody needs to go to jail. Judge Sullivan needs to look out at the government's table and say, this is contempt. And you, whether it's Todd Blanche or one of these other lieutenants, you are going to jail for contempt of court. Please, oh, please, oh, please, Judge Sullivan, please, please, oh, please do that. Because we've seen these prosecutors. They have been instructed by Donald Trump in the Trump method, which is delay, file appeals, file motions, delay, and disobey. Yeah, Judge, I'm not going to do that, and here's why. What, are they going to make Judge Sullivan defend his statements and rulings? Or, really, Judge, the ball's in your court. We're telling you we can't do it. And if you want us to, then you better come up with a really good reason why we have to. For you and me, the court system doesn't work that way. But as you have seen and I have seen, in an effort to appear fair and not to appear political, judges with anything to do with the Trump White House, or frankly, Trump personally, bend over backwards. Oh, you need another continuance? Okay. Oh, you need another continuance? Okay. Oh, you need to delay the start of this proceeding or that proceeding? Okay. It's like if they rule against Trump, he's going to appeal anyway. So I don't understand why they think that giving him every benefit of the doubt is somehow going to move things along or keep them from being targeted, because it's not. It is not. By the way, we are going to keep the phone lines and text lines open all day today, since it is, for many people, a holiday. And Lady B and I are in charge, and that's what we've decided to do. So, 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We are going to be reading your texts and taking your calls for the entire show today. Theoretically, because, it's a holiday and who knows what's going to happen, theoretically, two political science professors, Brian Endless and Joel Ostro, are going to come in about 3 o'clock and stay for the rest of the day. At least that's the plan. It's raining, it's holiday traffic. Who knows? Who knows if it'll happen? But that is the plan we are going with right now. But even when they're here, we're going to keep the phone lines and the text lines open. 773-763-9278. 773-763-WCPT. Great day to call in. Great day to be a first-time caller. It's the holiday. If you're nervous about coming across silly or stupid, this is the day to take that chance, okay, when most of your friends are doing something else. Oh, let's go back to Todd Blanche for a minute. What do you say? One of my favorite people in elected office right now is Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He is, dare I use that overused word, he is authentic. He posts these videos and he talks like a regular human being. He explains his thought process. He explains what's going on. He explains things that he and or the Senate are going to do in a way that is really understandable. When Jeff Jackson from North Carolina was a congressman, he used to post these videos, and it was like Civics 101. He's the Attorney General of North Carolina now, and he's still posting those videos, but obviously his purview is a little different now. So Sheldon Whitehouse posted a video about the man we have come to make a lot of fun of. Though what he's doing to the DOJ and to the country is nothing to laugh at. But he apparently auditioned for Donald Trump. Donald Trump moved him from interim head of the DOJ to Trump's official nomination to lead the DOJ. And I'm sure Todd Blanche is very happy about that. But that also means that he now has to appear before the Judiciary Committee and answer their questions, try to get his nomination voted out of committee to the full Senate. And there are a number of people who don't think he is a good choice, and not all of them are Democrats. So is Todd Blanche going to get confirmed? I don't know. But Senator Sheldon Whitehouse talked about Todd Blanche and the confirmation process and a few other things. I thought this was interesting. Listen to this.
Well, we're closing in on the Todd Blanche for Attorney General nominations hearing. And of course, we still don't have any of the documents that we've asked for about his little visit down to Ghislaine Maxwell in federal prison to extract from her exculpatory comments about Trump. Nor indeed do we have an explanation of why it is that the witness who specifically accused Trump of sexually and physically assaulting her had only one of 4 of the FBI 302 forms released. Coincidentally, the one of 4 that did not mention Trump. So we still have a lot of questions about this guy, and it would really be bad if the Republican senators, even now, were willing to cover all this up.
Well, we'll see. While they might make noise and raise the occasional gentle objection, Republican senators always seem to fall in line. Even if they, let's look at Bill Cassidy, voted for the War Powers Act to rein in Donald Trump in Iran. One of his complaints was that Donald Trump wasn't consulting the legislative branch, that he was springing all this stuff on them. They hadn't been informed ahead of time. They hadn't been consulted before the decisions were made. And apparently Donald Trump called him up and promised him that in the future he would make sure that the Senate was consulted. So, of course, Bill Cassidy changed his vote. Brave Bill Cassidy. After Bill Cassidy's political career was ended by Donald Trump, he is still subject to Trump's pressure. Anyway. Okay. Jack Smith, the famous prosecutor, this famous special prosecutor, who, if he'd have had another year, thank you, Merrick Garland, if he'd started a year earlier, Trump wouldn't be president. Trump would be in jail. That's my take on the investigations and the prosecutions. Thank you, Merrick Garland, for being the weakest, most unprosecutorial head of the DOJ that I've seen in a long time. But that's water under the bridge. Jack Smith has been very, very quiet. He's not the kind of guy that goes on television all the time. He made an exception yesterday. He sat down with MS Now's Nicole Wallace to give his first interview. And as part of that interview, he wanted people to know that that Americans needed to stand up for prosecutors and other people trying to uphold the law, the ones who had been pushed out of their agencies and the ones who still might remain, that we could not forget those people. Sure, Jack Smith's very high profile and his time to bring down Donald Trump came to a sad end. I mean, he suspended all the prosecutions as soon as Trump was elected because he knew there was no point. Because as soon as Trump was sworn in, everything would go away. So you know what? Let's face reality and close it down. Jack Smith was on MS Now yesterday with Nicole Wallace. And not only did he want to break his silence, but he thought it was really important that he break his silence on the 4th of July holiday weekend, which is a time when we think about who we are as a nation. Or at least that's what we should be doing for part of this. It isn't just backyard hamburgers and hot dogs and fireworks. It's a celebration of our founding and who we are or who we are supposed to be as a people. And he felt that this was the time to speak out. Here's just a little bit of what Jack Smith had to say.
I think we are facing an attack on the rule of law that is different in kind and scope to anything I've seen in my lifetime. And one of the reasons I wanted to be with you here today in advance of the 4th of July, celebrating the birth of a country that we all love, is to celebrate the public servants who do this work, the people I spent my career working shoulder to shoulder with. I loved being a prosecutor, and part of it was I loved being around these sort of people. And it angers me to see them victimized, to see them demonized for doing their jobs. I think it's really important that we stand up for them and let them know that there are a lot of people out there who back them and who are with them. And that's not just the people who've been targeted and fired for no reason for doing their jobs. It's also the people still in the Justice Department today.
Jack Smith making a plea that we support the people who are still trying to uphold the law. The people who are still trying, in whatever capacity they have left, to try to fight the good fight. I want to share this text with you, which seems very appropriate for the 4th of July. WCPT ought to inspire their audience and commemorate the 4th by airing a speech Trump made in 2017 where he said, quote, "The Minutemen won the Revolutionary War by capturing British air bases." That was the man we reelected to the presidency. Yep, we captured those British air bases back in the Revolutionary War. God help us. And you may have seen, he took his new Qatari jet out for a spin and went to the opening of the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. And one of the things there is a holographic projection of Theodore Roosevelt, and it's AI powered, so you can stand in front of it and ask Teddy Roosevelt questions. That's what Donald Trump did. But it is, and I swear to God, this is not a joke, it is unclear, because he doesn't know history, it's unclear whether or not he actually thought he was talking to Teddy Roosevelt. Because he has this whole conversation, asks him questions about stuff, and then later, when he's talking, he says to the people he's talking to, well, I talked with Teddy Roosevelt, and this is what he said. By the way, when he had that conversation with the people, he lied about, he gave some statement that was, like in agreement with Trump, what Trump had done, and that wasn't, if you look at the actual conversation he had with the Teddy Roosevelt AI, it wasn't even true. That's not what they talked about. But he told the people he was speaking with. Just a little while ago, I talked to Teddy Roosevelt, and he said this. And it is unclear. It appears to be a man who doesn't understand that he was talking to some kind of AI creation. And I know darn well, if this gets, traction on social media, Caroline Levitt will come out and say, oh, come on, you guys, he knew all the time. It was, how can you be so stupid? Of course he knew it was an AI. But if you actually watch the interaction, it is very unclear. It seems like an elderly guy having a conversation with somebody who is on a screen. Who knows? Could be Zoom for all he knows, right? Could be Zoom. Might be Zoom. You never know. Let's face it, guys. Governor Pritzker's right, and we all know it. We have a president who is ill, shows all the signs of frontotemporal dementia, and is becoming more erratic as time goes on. With frontotemporal dementia, with regular Alzheimer's, you forget. You just can't remember some stuff. But with frontotemporal dementia, you still can't remember things, but your brain creates a story to fill in that memory gap. And sadly, it's a story that you believe because you think it's an actual memory. Good grief. Happy 4th. We're going to read more texts and take more calls when we come right back after this.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Here's an interesting text that came in. I'm seeking inmate status in the Joan Esposito Lady B Live Local and Progressive Asylum. That text came in from Greg in Lake in the Hills, who happens to also be on the phone line. Greg, Lady B, do we give him asylum? Do we give him asylum? Can he be one of our inmates? I don't know if you could hear it. Lady B was talking in my ear, and she said, absolutely. Greg from Lake in the Hills, our first inmate in the Joan Esposito Lady B Live, Local, and Progressive Asylum. Greg, how are you?
I feel welcome. Thank you very much. The reason I called today, first thing, I think it's because it is a celebration of the 4th of July. I'll relate, from when I was a young boy. I remember one of my first memories of a celebration of the 4th of July was going to the local park, Chicago Park District, and seeing Roman Paczynski addressing the crowd. And, I didn't know what a Roman Paczynski was. I say it that way because that's what I thought. Who's this guy? What's this all about, And they had all the bunting around. But, the things I remember from that day were my bicycle, having my, monkey cards and my baseball cards, the ones I didn't care about, clipped on so that the spokes would,
make that,
click them
that
as you
noise,
go.
yeah.
Yeah, and my sisters having crepe tape with the red, white, and blue intertwined on their bicycles, and things like that. It brings back those memories. You remember those old those little snakes, they call them? You take and they were like a little black pellet, and you'd touch them with a match, and then the snake would come out of them.
No, I don't remember that.
Oh, I used to love those when I was a kid.
That sounds scary.
Well, no, they were like a charcoal snake or whatever it was that would it would just grow out of them, just not real far, but there was something about it, it's like getting a little closer to the real, like an adult with the firecrackers, M80s, and all that stuff.
Wow, that sounds so much more fun than the sparklers that I was given. And by the way, just about every 4th of July, I burned myself with the sparklers. Either those little sparkles got on me, or I touched the wrong part. So yeah, I'm a poster child for being careful on the 4th.
Oh, I'm right there with you. It's always, when we were kids, my dad and mom would take us over to Des Plaines. Lake Opeka had back in those days had one of the local fireworks displays, and it was always we had 6 kids in the family, and pile us all into the station wagon, and we go over there. But anyway, I just think back to those times, and another thing is you're talking a couple times during the week about working. You would be here Friday working, and what you said is it's so important, because I remember also as a young man working. One of my first jobs where I actually started to get a paycheck. I worked in a nursing home for a little over 3 years, and I remember my job was to, mop the floors, clean the bathrooms and stuff like that, and empty garbage cans and so forth. But it was scary to go in there at first. I was real scared. I was scared of wheelchairs and all that stuff. And I'll tell you, by the time I left, the 3 years later, I moved on to bigger and better things, I guess, making more money an hour in the next summer. But anyway, I met some really great people there that couldn't go out. And I'll tell you, one of the things I know they looked forward to was listening to the radio and hearing voices like yours, and the callers and everything. It wasn't the same back in those days. You had Wally Phillips, and you had the baseball games, of course, and but I remember those people, and then the people who worked there, as the orderlies and the nurses and stuff. And I remember Richard and Debbie and Mrs. Hester, Mrs. Tate, and those people, they worked hard. Yeah. But they were always so nice. I mean, I never saw anybody do anything inappropriate to any of those people, who sometimes were very mean. Those people, because they were they were senile and whatever. But the last thing I wanted to say. I always drive by somebody with an American flag, on the back of their Jeep Wrangler or pickup truck or something like that. But invariably, they also have that other flag that and I don't understand it. Maybe you can help me. I know people said it's back the blue flag, but to me, what I think of when I see that is like they negate the American flag for some reason. I think if the American flag should stand alone, and you don't have to make this other statement. But what does that flag mean? that one that I think you know what I mean. It looks like an American flag, but it's got more blues on it.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question. I don't mind when people want to fly the American flag and fly, let's say, a flag for, MIA or POW military folks. But, we've reached a point where I guess people want to share their point of view, even if it's just a flag, right?
To me, if you really are patriotic, the American flag says it all. I don't fly a flag. It's not because I'm not patriotic, but I don't feel I have to. I never fought in the military. I respect the people who fly the flag for that reason, but I lose a lot of respect when I see this other flag out there, and I think it's to intimidate to say, I'm an American, and I also support law and order. And that reminds me too much of old Heggie boy yesterday out on by that beautiful fountain that Trump stole money from all the national parks to restore. It's a beautiful fountain. I don't know if you saw it. I looked it up, but it's a very beautiful fountain. But of course, he'll take credit for doing it. But he did so under the guise of the American people paying for it. But if you look into it, that's what I understand, that those funds didn't come really from where they should have been appropriated for. Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry to end on a sour note. I really always loved the 4th of July. I still do. And I'm glad to hear your voice and Lady B's taking the phone calls today. And I look forward to the conversations of all my fellow callers through the rest of the time that I'm going to be listening, which is the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
Well, we thank you for that. But you do realize, though, as the first member of the Lady B, Joan Esposito Asylum, that means you're going to have to probably be the president of the organization. And so when the other members come in, you're going to have to give them the sheet that has the frequently asked questions and how the group works and what the rules are. So start working on that right now, Greg.
As soon as they unlock the door here at the cell.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Thank you so much for that call. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with more callers right after this.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Want to join the conversation?
I'm going to say exactly what I think here.
Got something to say?
Everyone needs to hear what I got to say.
Call Joan now at 773-763-9278 and join the conversation. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820.
We welcome you to the Joan Esposito Lady B Insane Asylum show. The inmates are in charge today. I hope you are celebrating this day off in lieu of your regular 4th of July holiday because, of course, the 4th is on a Saturday, so we get an extra day off. Well, theoretically, we get an extra day off. Richard, I was told Richard was here this morning. I was also told Patty's coming in tonight. And we technically at CPT, we get the day off if we want to. So what does that say? What does that say about us? And, I actually said I would work this day even before I knew it was going to be stormy. So what does that say about me? Anyway, let's not worry about that right now. We'll delve into my sanity or lack thereof later. Let's go to the phone lines. Steve is on the line from the Gold Coast. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Fine, Joan, thank you. And so a few points. One, as I recall, and someone can fact check me if they want, I'm in the car, but, the first actual balloon flight didn't take place until the 1780s, mid-1780s. So nobody had an Air Force. Nobody even had balloons by the time the Revolutionary War was over. So, no Air Forces.
So no Air bases? There were no British air bases? Yeah. Is that what you're saying? Oh.
Yeah. Yes, but I know, a bit confusing. Yes, no space flight, no aircraft carriers. Sorry, you're a few centuries too soon, Mr. President. But okay, it's Donald Trump, and I would argue that there is nothing worse than somebody who is essentially stupid who is in decline. I mean, I used to have, I'm 58 years old now, so it's a long time since I was in school, but I had some great professors I've stayed in touch with, really great minds, respected, well-known, and they started to decline as they've gotten older, but they would have these moments, even days or weeks where, it's just sharp as a tack because it's not a switch that goes on and off.
Yep.
And, during those moments, God, they could out-debate and would know more than anybody else in the room. So, yeah, when they were in decline, again, it wasn't as if they were simply, gone. But when somebody who is essentially an idiot and mentally ill at that, as many have argued, his entire adult life, basically he's suffered from any number of conditions, as has been speculated given his behavior, is now in decline. I mean, what could possibly be worse?
Yeah.
That is Donald Trump. But again, nobody is going to say, the emperor has no clothes, because he's surrounded by sycophants who, have tied their future to him.
Which is also why they'll never invoke the 25th Amendment, because they would never. They would all lose their jobs. Are you kidding me? Like anybody, like if J.D. Vance comes in, he's not going to keep those idiots. He's going to put idiots of his own in place.
Oh, absolutely. And Trump's big trump card is the fact that, they're all hoping that, unlike other presidents who might sign a few dozen pardons on the way out the door, including, say, random citizens who committed relatively minor crimes, this administration has been speculated that there might be a few thousand of these things, preemptive, pardons, just so that he keeps all of his cronies, his family out of prison, his appointed officials. I mean, all of these people are going to be looking for that get-out-of-jail-free card.
And I believe that it's not just altruistic, Steve. I think the reason he's going to provide all these pardons is because if somebody is investigated and they're not covered by a pardon, what's to keep them from turning on him? If they got nothing left to lose.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we know now this week that, just how much he's made. And, there's a breakdown. All of it is a grift for his being president. He's not making money. He's making a small amount of money, about 1/100th of every dollar that he makes from the property in Florida and so forth, Mar-a-Lago, that kind of thing. But his big money are things like the cryptocurrency and other nonsense that he's selling. I mean, that's where the big cash has come from. So you can essentially buy your way into this Oval Office, and that's what they did. A lot of his cash that was donated to his campaign came from the crypto community. What a surprise that we got positive legislation for crypto following that. Basically, give $1 and get 1,000 back, and that's what happened. So, and then, look, there are a number of ways you can celebrate this holiday. I'm glad you brought up the fact that we need to think about what it is. Unfortunately, in this country, we tend to think of Memorial Day as beginning the summer, the 4th is the middle, Labor Day is the end. We don't spend enough time thinking about what any of those actually represent. They're just days to barbecue and enjoy and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
But in this case, you've got a celebration in Washington, D.C., and I think it represents in many ways the worst of what this country can be, where we've descended. And then there's a celebration at the Obama Center, if I'm not mistaken, and that will celebrate the aspirational thing that is America, the thing that we aren't perhaps there, never have been, but we aspire to be that. And that's the difference. Because, celebrating, hate and fear and everything else that MAGA and Trump want to advocate and stand for is what you're going to see tomorrow in Washington, D.C. And a cult of personality, because you'll see Trump's name and picture everywhere because he wants everybody to associate the 250th.
It's not about the birthday of the country. It is another venue, another avenue to celebrate Donald Trump.
Yes. Absolutely. He wants to carve that into the American historical landscape. That Donald Trump, you can't look it up, in 50 years. If you do a search, you won't be able to look it up without his name, his picture, and his image being everywhere. So he thinks, that that's somehow going to preserve his image. But, like I say, we're perhaps going to turn a corner in the fall. As Churchill said, it's not the end. It's not the beginning of the end, but it is the end of the beginning. So, perhaps then, if we win, if we can take back one house, if we can take back two, then you can really stifle his power. And, that last year in 2028, when somebody else is running for the highest office in the land and Republicans are scurrying to get away from this man and MAGA in the hopes of retaining their office, or just not to be primaried by a more moderate Republican. Not saying Democrats are going to necessarily seize a lot of Republican seats, but more moderate Republicans could possibly seize those seats. So
and
when
Steve,
everybody's running...
I think with the election, the primary elections of a lot of these Democratic socialists, I think what voters are saying is that we better, if we even take just one house, we better use every tool at our disposal to stop and slow down this guy. Republicans have always had no shame. If there's a procedural thing they can do to delay something or derail something, oh, yeah, they'll do it. If we take back the House and if there's a vote coming up that we don't like, why not do a Mike Johnson? Oh, I'm sorry. We need to recess. Everybody's going home because, and if in another week you'd be on a vacation. So we're going to start it early. We need somebody who will use every tool in the toolbox to stop, slow, thwart, and derail these folks.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to stop being the people who bring a knife to a gunfight.
Exactly.
That we're the only ones who are going to play by the rules. We're going to be collegial because that's who we are. No, I mean, if Mitt Romney were president, I'd say sure. Because though I disagree with Mitt Romney, I've met him on a number of occasions. He's a decent guy, disagree with his politics and policies, but he's fundamentally a decent human being, as opposed to Donald Trump, who would quite frankly see this country burn down as long as he could be king of the ashes.
Exactly.
And, that's the problem.
Yep. Oh, Steve, thank you so much for the call. It is always great to hear from you. Please have a very wonderful 4th in between the raindrops, if you can.
You as well. Yeah, the streets are flooded out here. I mean, I'm in an SUV, and thank God. But yeah. So a lot of rain fell in a very short period. Take care, Joan. Have a good holiday.
You too. Bye-bye. This text came in. Remember I said, why did Bill Cassidy change his vote? He voted with 3 other folks to invoke a war powers resolution that would have reined in Trump on Iran. Trump called him up and said, just change your vote, and I promise I'll consult you. You'll be a part of every decision going forward. And so Cassidy said, yeah, sure. Somebody texted in, Cassidy changed his vote because he wants to earn lots of money as a lobbyist in a few months, and he can't get that job if Trump is angry with him. Not even the judges are doing what ought to be done, and I, meaning me, are still naive enough to plead with me to vote. Yes, I am. I'm going to say voting is the only, and if it's really dark, voting is the only power you've got left. Why give away? Why give away the one thing you can actually do to try to bring about change? And there are so many elections, even if you're not looking at federal elections, municipal elections, county elections, state elections. I've been watching elections for a very long time, and don't ever think your vote doesn't count, because I have seen elections that were won or lost by fewer than 5 votes. It has happened. It has happened here in the state of Illinois. Don't you ever say that your vote doesn't count for anything, because it absolutely does. Let's go to Indiana. Dan is on the line. Hello, Dan. Happy 4th of July weekend.
Joan, happy 4th to you. Happy 4th to you and to Lady B, and thank you for both being there.
Well, you're very welcome.
I guarantee you many of us appreciate it.
Well,
to go back to a previous caller, yes, and absolutely. And to go back to a previous caller concerning the flag.
Yes.
This used to be my favorite week of the year, above all. My birthday is 3 days from now.
Ooh, happy birthday.
So obviously for between July 4th and July 6th, this was my favorite absolute week of the year. When I was younger, it was even crazier. But it no longer is. It's been taken away from me, and I just can't say it enough. I used to have 15 flags flying here at the house. I don't have any flags flying anymore, and I won't. I made a decision last year on January 20th. I will not fly a flag again until I'm dead or he's dead or gone or whatever. And that's just a decision that I've made. It's not that I don't love this country. The reason I feel like this is because I do love this country. And I just can't put it into words. And
well, I can understand what you're saying, because to you it feels like putting out a flag and celebrating the country is celebrating the country as it is now under the leadership it has now. And I get that. I absolutely get that.
I can't do it anymore. And I just, deep in my soul, I made a decision. I used to be the biggest flag waver you ever seen, and it's gone. I mean, I don't even go to parades anymore. My wife does, but I won't. And I just can't do it. And it's just, this is what it's done to me, and it's sad, but I'm just being honest. And it's not good. It's not just me. I've seen more online also. Another thing I just saw online, the event's been postponed, you might say, in Washington, D.C.
Oh, really? Because, when the party was supposed to first start, which I can't remember if it was this morning or yesterday morning, a couple of Fox hosts had set up this dais for them, and in the background was the mall where all the partying was supposed to take place. There wasn't a single person. There wasn't a single person. The morning hosts were sitting in front of absolute emptiness. And Jim Acosta went later, and he said, he was walking around. He was like, look, he said, there's, you want to get in, don't worry about a line because there isn't one. You want to buy some food, don't worry about a line because there isn't one, because there aren't enough people to make a line.
You might hear this one too. I just read it before I got on, is that somebody called in. Matter of fact, they said it sounded like Trump with a bomb threat. So that's another reason why they postponed it till whenever. But
I was reading a couple days ago, even before we knew exactly what the weather was going to be, a couple days ago, that Donald Trump was kind of, maybe panicking is too strong a word, but he was very concerned that he would be embarrassed by the lack of turnout for this picnic festival thing that was supposed to honor our country. And so people were speculating he would find a reason to shut it down or postpone it.
Made sense. Plus the weather, 107 degrees.
It feels like it's 150. I'll have to look at the exact number right now. I mean, I'm in an air-conditioned house, and just looking out the window makes me sweat.
No, I'm talking about in Washington, D.C.
Oh, in Washington. Yeah,
that's what it
was supposed to
107.
Be. Yeah, yep. And there were places along the East Coast, remember, and in Europe, where they're expecting it over this weekend to be over 110 degrees. They were saying that they were going to maybe postpone 2 legs of the Tour de France because it's just too hot.
There's no such thing as climate change, which I still hear from people that I know. Yeah, and I won't have to deal with it much longer, but other people will. And they've been trying to tell us for how many years, the scientists and everybody. Of course, they're all gone now. They're fired. So deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to vent a little bit and tell you that.
Well,
and,
happy
and
birthday
thank you so much.
in advance. If you don't feel like you can celebrate the 4th, it's always good to celebrate a birthday. For a while, I thought maybe I wasn't going to have any birthdays anymore, as you reach a certain age. But then I thought, I should celebrate the fact that I'm still alive, for God's sake.
True. Yeah, very true. Very true. Thank you. And thank you, Lady B. Love Lady B, too.
I appreciate that. And I'm sure Lady B does as well. Thank you so much, Dan. I want to share another text that came in. I shared that somebody texted in that I should quote Trump in 2017, where he made a speech about how we won the Revolutionary War because we took charge of all those British air bases. Somebody texted in, remember, Cittadini I think that's a Cheetos reference. Cheetolini thought Frederick Douglass was still alive. There you go. He absolutely did. I remember that quote. We are going to take a break for news. We are going to continue to take your calls. And when we come back, I will be joined by the lovely Brian Endless and the lovely Joel Ostro. Here, I believe they are actually blowing off Taylor Swift's wedding just so they can join me here in the studio. We'll be back with more after this.
You're the only voice of reason on the radio.
You give me hope.
Having listened to you every day.
Thank you for your clear insight.
Always felt a little bit smarter.
I listen to you every single day.
I keep coming back to this station, and thank you for what you do.
On WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Joan, as always, exceptional work from you from, your TV days all the way up to today. You're truly exceptional, and thanks for this great show you have.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
You've heard them on their podcast, the World Discord podcast. Political science professor Brian Endless from Loyola, political science professor Joel Ostro from Benedictine. Clearly, like me, they have no life, so we are all going to do this show together. Though I have heard rumors that the two of you were getting ready to go into Madison Square Garden until you realized I was doing a show, and real quick you got in your private jet and flew back here so you could be a part of this celebration of the 4th?
I gave away my ticket. I'm not sure about Joel.
I'm flying out right after the show.
I read at first it sounded pretty obnoxious. Oh, I'm having my wedding in Madison Square Garden. But one of the reasons she said was there are no windows. It is enclosed. And they've set up these tents. So all these black SUVs, nobody knows who's coming because they get out of their car in a tent and then they're taken down this private hallway. And besides, where else are you going to have 1,000 of your closest friends?
Yeah. The weird part for me is that place holds like 25 or 30,000 people.
Right.
It's going to look empty.
It's going to feel empty, but they probably close it off with curtains or whatever, the parts of it.
Probably a wall of roses or, probably $500,000 worth of flowers all around.
What I want to know is, are they going to be serving the Knicks concession food for the
really? Yep. We're not there. We're here. And thank you to both of you who have said that you would help me talk to listeners and answer calls and read texts and talk about the news of the day. We do have a couple of callers waiting. But before we go back to the phone lines, am I going to jinx it? It doesn't seem like it's a huge news day except for the bad weather. Oh, God, what's going to happen? I just did it. Something really horrible is going to happen. And I know that there have been some developments in the Ukraine war, Joel, and there are some things that are happening. What is it right now? Let's start with you, Brian. What is it, any news that you are particularly following right now?
Actually, it's the weather, Joan. It's interesting that you said that. I'm getting a little bit freaked out. We got a ComEd warning, that's our local electric company, last night, saying we need to cut down on our power. It was July 1 in Chicago, and it's the first week of 90 to 100-degree weather, far from the last week. And they're already telling us the power grid's going to overload. Yeah. And that's in Chicago with a pretty decent power grid. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the East Coast and the West Coast is going to get hit. And France, Joe was just telling me, had 130 degrees in southern France.
138 heat index, yeah.
Insane. And they don't have air conditioning there. But this is what people have been warning us about for 25 or 30 years. And the scary part is not that we haven't fixed it. That's scary. But we haven't even prepared for it. And it's going to be like Texas was a few years ago.
Yep. And, I saw a couple of experts saying, okay, kids, I'm going to tell you right now, we blew the window for preventing this. Mm-hmm. Now the focus has to be how are we going to deal with it and how are we going to keep it from getting any worse than it already is. That was a cheery statement.
Yeah, and what's interesting is if you look at the news, it's not just the heat in the United States or the heat in Europe. There's news every day now about what's happening with the Atlantic current, the circulation that makes basically North America and most of Europe habitable.
Right.
Keeps us warmer. It will be much colder, oddly enough,
Right.
if that shuts down. And the rest of the planet will get hotter as a result. You see ocean temperatures at unprecedented levels. In the Arctic, the first 100-degree day ever was recorded in the Arctic Circle.
Was that yesterday?
I think it was the day before yesterday, reported yesterday. Like, all of this stuff is happening at the same time. And I read more disturbing stuff about the largest Antarctica glacier, and the rate of melt is faster from underneath than they had ever measured. All of this stuff is combining at once. It's really frightening.
Joan, if you or the listeners want to read about it, there's a great book called 40 Degrees Below. It's actually a trilogy that Kim Stanley Robinson did. He's
Was that science fiction?
Science fiction, but he is a hard science writer, and he gets his science right, and he researches and works with physicists and a meteorologist and others to do it. And that is a book that's now 10, 15 years old, and the premise is simply that the Gulf Stream shuts down, which will happen if too much water falls into the North Atlantic off of the icebergs. What that ends up doing is causes the next ice age in North America.
Yep.
And it would happen quickly. The last ice age took like 2 or 3 years to come in. All you need is not going above 32 degrees and, a couple feet of snow a day, and you have an ice age in a few months. It's insane how quickly it could happen if that one thing goes wrong.
Yeah, but the Gulf current is part of that larger Atlantic, what do they call it? Atlantic Meridional Oceanic current. So it's also significant for Northern Europe as well.
Absolutely.
And then we'll all be getting ComEd warnings about turning your heat down because we've got too many people trying to get their heat up. A long time ago, somebody told me that when you have air conditioning, the most you can expect from your air conditioning is that it will cool your house or building 20 degrees cooler than it's outside, which means, because I remember this was during that heat wave where so many people died in Chicago, if it's 100 degrees outside, you cannot expect your house to cool below 80. That's the rule of thumb that people who work with AC units now, hopefully maybe AC units are a little more effective than they used to be, but it's the end of the world as we know it.
Unfortunately.
At the news at the top of the hour, they talked about that cruise ship that was being disassembled and disinfected. I kind of feel like that's where I am today. I need to be disassembled and disinfected and start anew.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, start anew tomorrow morning.
Just don't say we should all wear masks or we'll lose a few listeners.
Yeah.
Well, they were recommending for people when there were supposed to be fireworks in D.C.
Oh, right.
And my next door neighbors, their kids live in the D.C. area, and they corroborated this. There were health warnings that if you are going to be around and outside when the fireworks are going off, to wear a K95 mask if you have any kind of health issues or you're older, because there was going to be so much detritus in the air from the fireworks going off. And one of my listeners a couple days ago sent me a text where they listed all of the different things that hang around in the air after fireworks go off.
No, it's incredible. And just air quality. DC is going to be like the worst cities in the world at the worst times, and we're doing it to ourselves.
Yep. I think it's somebody said the reason the District of Columbia is so hot is because the gates of hell have opened and they're waiting for Mitch McConnell. Who, by the way, we still haven't gotten any word about. June 14th, Mitch McConnell was taken to the hospital. At first, his aides said, he's not going to be doing any Senate votes this week. And since then, man, it's been radio silence.
Oh, no, cardiac arrest. They reported, it came out yesterday, his chief of staff was quoted as saying he was brought into the hospital for cardiac arrest.
Okay.
Well, I know that they released the 911 call that somebody was unconscious. When did they say that, and where did they say that?
I read it yesterday. I can't remember what it was. It was a major source.
Yeah. I guess I have to speak poorly about him today then, because I don't speak poorly about people after they die. So I've got to get it in.
Cardiac arrest, okay, but did they say
that was all he said?
Is he conscious?
That was
is he
all
responding?
He said. Yeah, that was all he said. The reason he was brought to the hospital was for a cardiac incident, which was then suspected as cardiac arrest.
Don't wish anyone any ill, but...
Yeah, I don't wish him well, though.
Well, he needs to be disassembled and disinfected, too. After a certain age, you should be disassembled and disinfected like every 2 or 3 years.
That's actually totally fair because you volunteered yourself first. So.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. I'm willing to be,
Lady B's nodding here.
Okay, we are going to take a break, and then the three of us are going to get back to the phone lines right after this.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Every weekday afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820.
Professor Joel Ostro, Professor Brian Endless, and not a Professor Joan Esposito are going to be answering calls and reading texts today. Let's go to the phone lines right now. Our friend Ron is on the line from Chicago. Hey, Ron, how are you today?
Yeah, happy holidays. Yes. Yeah, I heard that Trump has made more than 21,000 stock market transactions last year. That's more than 50 a day. How can he have time for anything else?
Yeah, exactly. And apparently his children are trying to keep up with him. There have been reports that Trump and his family are basically trading pretty much every day.
Yeah, for sure.
But no corruption there.
No. No. And I heard that at the big event tomorrow, Trump has invited the hundreds of the January 6th rioters, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and I heard that once. I don't know if that's really true or not.
I haven't seen anything about a Proud Boy invitation. Have either of you guys?
I have not.
No, I haven't either. They're going to need those to come anywhere near filling the stands, though.
Yeah, I mean, there haven't been more than like 20 people in the mall, right? Like all
My
week.
prediction is the whole weekend's events are canceled. Not necessarily because he cares about people getting struck down by heat, but he doesn't want to be embarrassed by the fact that there's, 50 people who show up?
Yeah, they'll use the weather as an excuse.
Yeah. So we can't corroborate that, Ron.
Okay, Patty LaBelle will be there.
Will she? How about Nicki Minaj? She's another big Trump supporter.
Yeah, and also, and also the number 1776. That could be either the date of the Declaration of Independence or the number of times Trump has fallen asleep during meetings this year.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody texted in that July 4th, 1776 was the original No King's Day.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the call, Ron. I appreciate it. Let's go back to the phone lines. Dee is on the line from Chicago. Hey, Dee, you're on with me, Brian, and Joel. Go ahead.
Hi, Joan. Hi, professors. How are you?
So far, so good.
Good, thanks.
Good. I hope everyone has a great holiday. I had a specific question about whether you'd heard of the concept of the Three Arrows flag. It would have been around World War II, Central Europe, the resistance against fascism in Germany, Austria, against fascism, monarchism, and communism, because there's this trope where the right says, well, National Socialism, Nazism was the left, right? But there was this confluence where they took advantage of elements on the left, much as we see now with some elements of the DSA.
I want to clarify, this flag you're talking about, the Three Arrows flag, was that supporting Marxism, fascism, and communism, or was it opposing it?
Against it. No, against it, opposed to it, because these were corrosive forces which were tearing down the Weimar Republic in Germany.
Well, we have two experts with us. Let's see if Brian or Joel has ever heard of this Three Arrow flag. Guys?
I just found an image of it online. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I knew,
Brian probably has.
I knew it was an anti-fascist flag, and I guess it's a German political party at the time that had it. But yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Dee, right now we are getting into a time where everybody wants to own the word fascism. So fascism's been used, Joel and I both used it to talk about the Trump administration, but people on the other side are like, well, fascist has the word socialist in it. So, socialist must be bad and must be fascist. It's just people using words for political purposes right now.
Well, and the far right, as always, as part of their disinformation campaign, they always sow confusion about important words,
Absolutely.
right? And certainly on fascism, like they've
and
been
the far right always has the
hurling
means
that
to
all the
do
time.
so because the far right is always the moneyed majoritarian party in any country, which is why these movements always look so similar.
True.
Thank you. Thank you for informing us about that, Dee. I thought we were going to learn something from the political science professors, but apparently it's the callers who are going to be educating us today. By the way, I was talking earlier. I don't know if you guys saw the video of Trump at the Teddy Roosevelt Library.
Yes.
And how he was talking to a Teddy Roosevelt AI. And you couldn't tell if he really thought he was talking to Teddy Roosevelt or not. I mean, he was asking him all these questions. And then later he told a group of people, well, I just talked with Teddy Roosevelt. And one of our listeners texted in, my dad had Alzheimer's and he experienced waking nightmares. And what he saw was very real to him. And maybe that's what happened with the president, that he really thought he was talking to Teddy Roosevelt. And my response is, just the fact that we are having this debate, did he really think an AI was real or not, shows where we are with this president. That's a real discussion to have. Did he think the AI was a real person?
And I have to say, I was saying this starting this first term. My mom also passed away from Alzheimer's. And when the situation that I saw with Trump in his first term was the kind of thing where my response was, your family should be taking you into a doctor right now. Your family should be getting you a full battery of tests and getting you out of public right now. And he goes on to have more years as president and then to get reelected again. And people don't seem to care.
Yep. I thought it was very interesting, though, that J.B. Pritzker, for the first time in his discussion with Caitlin Collins on CNN, she said, do you think the president has dementia? He said, yes. He said, I'm no medical professional. He said, but if you look at clips of Donald Trump from, 10 years ago and how he responded to questions and how he talked, and you look at the clips today, it's very clear that there's something wrong with this guy.
Even CNN doesn't show passages of his speeches. He routinely makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, you know what, though? They've been doing that for a long time.
It's been a while,
but
Brian.
They did that with W. They did that with Richie Daley. Richie Daley used to get his speeches edited on TV. Both Richie and W had problems with the English language.
But not like this.
No, in Trump's case, it
a
does
difference
appear,
in kind.
Yeah, it very much appears to be dementia, not just, problems putting together a sentence.
And it's not like they hesitated to show lengthy video clips of the last president.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So who controls the media? We should do a podcast episode on that.
I think that was 2 weeks ago.
It hasn't come out yet. No, it's coming out on Monday.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Guys, let's go back to the phone lines. Judy is on the line. Hello, Judy. Thanks for calling in today.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I am finally going to narc on my stepson. I got married 54 years ago on Wednesday, and when I did, I inherited 3 children. The youngest of those was when he went in high school, he used to stick his head in and look at when I was watching. I was a big news buff, and he'd stick his head in and say, that Joan Esposito is a babe.
Oh, my God.
And you were. Well, but like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, he said to us, I sent her 24 long-stemmed red roses. We said, when? And he said, when I used to help out in junior college. He'd help out after school. And one day he just decided that he was going to send them to you. I can't imagine that you would remember all that, because maybe you were such a babe that you got showered with that sort of thing all the time.
Oh, no, I got, no. I did not get red roses all the time. And if they actually ended up on my desk, I promise you that I wrote a nice thank you note in response, because no, that would have been a very special day for me to get that kind of.
I don't know, Joan. True story. I can confirm what the caller said here. I posted it on Facebook when I'm going to be online, and a buddy got back to me on text. I won't out him with his name, but he got back to me on text and he said, "It's so cool when you go on Joan. I had a massive crush on her when I was 12 years old."
Well, years ago, I was at Club Lucky, and a youngish, everybody's youngish, waiter came up, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh man, when I was 17, I had such a crush on you." And then I looked at him and I said, "Well, why did I lose you? What happened? Where was the time where you drifted away to someone else? Tell me so I can fix that."
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I hear. Oh, when I was 12, when I was 11. Where do they go? Who do they move on to? And why don't they stay with me?
It's like I say to my kids, "You were so cute when you were young."
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to the phone lines. Our good friend Jim's on the line from Chicago. Jim, it's me and Brian and Joel. Go right ahead. Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Joan?
Yes.
Joan and the two professors. I compare public information to medicine. Now, I look at the body politic as a human being, and fed ridiculous information only hurts the body politic. You can see it in the pandemic. You can see it with J.D. Vance alluding to the fact that Nixon never would have been drummed out of office in this particular period. Now, he didn't go into detail about it, but apparently we have so much baloney that they can get away with anything. And that's the thing that now think of it this way. What if let's go back in time, and the town crier, you're living in a little village, and the town crier comes 3 times a week, whatever it is, but he starts to lie. He starts to lie the third time. He tells you that the livestock is somewhere where it isn't. I mean, how long are you going to put up with that town crier? Usually the town crier got like a pint of booze and a sandwich, but they take it away from him now. I mean, but this is we're in a drastic situation where opinion has gone berserk, and now when you just watch regular vanilla television, or people are they want to give 2 sides of reality, which is impossible to do. There aren't 2 sides of reality. There's reality, and then there's reality. Anyway, you guys celebrate and have a good, safe 4th of July. Thanks, Joan, and thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for that call, Jim. We're going to take a break. When we come back, that's something I want to talk about. There used to be facts and there used to be opinion, and now those lines have become so blurred that I think a lot of people assume that either everything is opinion or everything is fact, whether or not that's true. I'm talking to Brian Endless and Joel Ostro. We'll be right back after this.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I'm joined by political science professor Brian Endless from Loyola, political science professor Joel Ostro from Benedictine University. And I want to talk about what our caller Jim was going on about before we took a break. The fact that, there used to be opinion, there used to be fact, and now people don't understand the difference. I mean, I believe that there are people who listen to somebody like Sean Hannity, and they think that these aren't opinion, these aren't rants meant to entertain, as we discovered. That's how he feels about it in his texts that were revealed during the Dominion lawsuit. But people think that he's telling them the truth, that he's telling them what's real. When do you think that happened, that we lost that line?
Reagan.
That's Brian's answer to everything.
Started with Reagan, at least.
Yeah, I think it's later than that. Reagan, the concerted extreme right shift to misinformation coincided with the opportunity to parlay that to political advantage, and that was with the change in technology, right? And sort of as a civilization, we haven't figured out how to deal with the digital age when it comes to information, when it comes to fact versus fiction. And the biggest problem that I see politically, because my concern is, is the future of democracy and the threats to it. Jefferson identified very early on that an informed citizenry is essential for democracy to work in the modern era. And for a long time, access to media was by professionals. And journalism, I don't have to tell you, Joan, journalism was a profession. You got trained in certain methods. You did the work. There were editors who served as gatekeepers. And while maybe the emphasis or tone and sources would be slightly different, whether it was ABC, CBS, NBC, or PBS, or whether it was the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune or the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, they were all reporting the same things. And they were all working with essentially the same facts. There would be differences in the editorial page and on the op-ed pages, but the information we got as an American citizenry was pretty consistent, and we could agree on facts. But now in this age where the barriers to entry are basically zero, anyone with a phone or a keyboard can post whatever they want or put on TikTok whatever they want. It makes, I'll pitch you, Brian, it makes coming together very difficult because we can't even agree on what 2 + 2 is.
Yeah.
Right. I don't disagree, but I'll take it through history a little bit. When I say Reagan, it's kind of a joke, but it also started then. That's about the time where think tanks, mostly conservative think tanks, started feeding information into groups. So when we look at the moral majority that helped bring Reagan into office, that was not something that was a groundswell of Christians coming together. That was a purposeful campaign to feed information into a few very influential ministers and to create the anti-abortion movement that didn't exist at all before that point in time. And then you jump forward, I think 94 with Gingrich was important. And Haley Barbour, people don't often remember him, chair of the Republican Party at the time, went on to be governor of Tennessee. Barbour said something on one of the Sunday morning talk shows I will never forget. There was a time where Clinton was running for office and people were just saying things about him that had no basis in reality whatsoever. And Barbour got on and he was questioned about this, and he was just honest about it for some reason. He said, you know what, we're going to keep throwing spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. And we're going to go with that. And that's going to be the story. And then you take it forward, George W. Bush, we were in the post-fact society or post-truth society. They were very open about it. And now everything with Trump, it's not that Trump created this, it's that we're at a current peak of where this is.
But before this social media era, the reach was limited. It was much more difficult for them to get very far because there was still a mainstream media, and they all had editors who were trained the same way and held the same standards, right? And they were basically, if all you had to do is go back and watch All the President's Men and Ben Bradley's sending Woodward and Bernstein out to get a fourth independent verification of the information after having sent them for a third, right? Because the standard was 2. And that was the professional standard. And Reagan and even W to an extent, they were still working in that reality, and so their reach was very limited. What has led to this 1984 world, referencing George Orwell's, doublespeak and all of that, is that again the benefits of everyone being a journalist is we know about what happened to George Floyd.
Yeah.
The problems of everyone being a journalist is January 6th.
Yep.
And then also, when we're looking at this with the 1984 reference, we need to go back and see that's the point in time, too, where we started moving toward non-independent media.
Yep.
And people started buying up media companies, and we're peaking that.
That's
now.
what Reagan's deregulation spiraled out.
I want to go back to a great quote. It's late 70s, early 80s. I can't remember which. For those of us that remember Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, Democrat who was one of the great centrists of all time. Moynihan said something that will always stick with me. He said that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. Exactly. And I look at that, and I look at just the climate debate is a great example of this. I use this one in my classes. In the 1970s, under Nixon, the climate debate was the climate is changing and it's being caused by human beings. And we started to know it at that point in time. It was in the 70s and 60s. People were starting to research it. So the climate's changing. Humans are causing it. Everybody would agree on that. You'd have a Congress that talks about it and everybody agrees. And the right says, okay, capitalism should solve this and the market will solve this. And the far left might say, okay, we need to go back to an agrarian society. And they'd find some answer in the middle. And they would find some way that everybody wins a little, everybody loses a little. We have lost that completely over the last 45 years.
Yep.
I want to run this by you. I saw somebody, I don't know if it was on cable news, and they were talking about this whole idea of especially people who watch primetime Fox cable and just swallow everything they have to say. Okay. The person commenting said that it was basically, because especially for Fox primetime, it's the older generation, boomers, if you will. And their theory was that boomers grew up knowing that they could trust media and with the belief that if it was on television, it had to be true. In the days of Walter Cronkite, in the days of the Fairness Doctrine and all this other stuff, if it was on television, it was true. And that mindset of if Fox Cable is telling me something absurd, but it's on television, there's a sort of this innate bias. Well, it must be true. They're saying it on television.
Don't just blame the right, though, because that phenomenon is widespread and is widespread on the left as well, Brian. I'm sure you'll agree.
Absolutely.
Like, all you have to do is look what people post on social media. They see it somewhere and treat it as if it's published material from the 1975, New York Times, with that kind of verifiability without checking. And this happened. It happened during COVID. It happened before COVID. It happened after COVID. Like it pick a topic, any topic.
Yeah.
I think we're prone to that. Again, it's, and I think even, I don't know what your experience is with your students, Brian, but it is, I think most of us see something in what seems like an official source. And unfortunately, things like Instagram or TikTok or Facebook have somehow taken over this, maybe not taken over, but people look at those as those platforms and not distinguishing them as sources. They see it on there and then they repeat it without checking. And because you don't have to repeat it, you see it published, we still trust that it's true.
This is something I teach because you're absolutely right. Absolutely right, Joel. I do a class on capitalism, and I do a TikTok every morning, and I've been doing it for a couple of years, bringing up a lot of the issues that we have. And I assign these to my students, but I don't assign them to just watch the TikTok. It's a 1-minute TikTok, and I have them write a 1 to 2 page paper critiquing it and actually looking up the details and finding sources, because I'm saying a polemic in 1 minute. There's nothing I can say that's meaningful in that
You saying a polemic?
Not at all.
In the classroom? Capitalism and its discontents.
but I flat out tell them that, because I try to be honest about it, and I challenge them to either find the sources or find things that fight against it. And I think that's really important. The other thing, Joan, back to your basic point.
My students know my classes are fair and balanced.
Oh, 100%. I've met many of your students. we make fun of Joel when I meet his students, usually in front of him. But I think it goes more basic. I'm trying to be serious, Joel. Come on. It goes more basic than that, Joan. It's not just the watching television. They're using a psychological tool that's called appeal to authority.
Yes.
And leaders have used appeal to authority forever before mass media. Mass media just makes it an enormous amount easier to do it, and everybody starts to look like an authority.
It doesn't, and you are right. There's nothing new about this, and it worked effectively and incredibly effectively for Stalin, for Hitler, and I've mentioned this before. Like, I went back a couple of years ago and reread Erich Fromm's Escape from Freedom, which was basically explaining, like, how did it happen in Germany that like this collective brainwashing. It's really a fascinating book and really troubling because it speaks to what we have now, even though the information of space is totally different now from what it was then.
Yep.
But bad actors can still manipulate us through propaganda, and the vehicles in the end are really just the vehicles.
And they do it incredibly purposefully, too. This is not an accident in any way, shape, or form. The people building the messaging on both sides, but it's the conservative think tanks do a lot of the negative messaging that doesn't deal with the truth, but the
flat out lying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they, on the left, they certainly put it into messaging too. I sometimes accuse the left of not being as good as the right at messaging. I think the right's better at it, but they use every psychological tool in the book to try to convince us that left is right and down is up and everything else to get us to see things their way.
Gentlemen, we need to take a break. I'm speaking with political science professors Brian Endless and Joel Ostro. We are going to return to the phone lines when we come right back after this.
Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Every weekday afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820.
Brian Endless, Joel Ostro, and I are spending the whole day talking about the news and taking your calls. Let's go back to the phone lines. Richard is on the line from Chicago. Hey, Richard, you're on with me and Brian and Joel. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I just you were talking about Teddy Roosevelt a minute ago, and I was just thinking we have a Supreme Court that thinks they can talk to the founders. So
yeah, really,
it's not nothing. Yeah, there are several things. With regard to climate change, I just wanted we brought that up. I have something I wanted to say about prior to that, but the debate goes back and forth. I'm reading Naomi Klein's book, This Changes Everything, and it occurred to me one day that instead of they're very easily tried to debunk reality, right? The right does. And I just thought to myself, we can go back and forth forever, but you could look at the end result. What happens if we take steps now to curb it? Well, we get solar power, wind power. It's horrible, right? But if if we're wrong, that's what we get. If they're wrong, we get catastrophe. So as far as, to me, I'd like to leap to the conclusion before we, as we continue to get so mired in, the propaganda that it's not real, et cetera. So I just wanted to throw that out. But the real reason I called, real quick. Borowitz's Profiles in Ignorance. I think you guys probably have read that, by the way, from what you were talking
about.
Andy
Borowitz?
Yep. Yeah. Profiles in Ignorance. It reminds us of how since Reagan, the public debate and news reporting has just gone to hell. We would tolerate the mayor from Alaska to be one step from the presidency, right? But anyhow, I'm sorry. I'm trying to make notes so that I wouldn't be so stupid sounding at this point.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Believe me, we've got the corner on stupid over here, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. So in line with what I was saying about jumping to the end, you don't really, and you still look very nice. So
well, thank you.
I had to throw that in. I wasn't going to, but leaping forward with climate change to the results, it makes me think about how they're reporting on Trump's money, and it makes me nuts because when a person makes money, generally they earn it. And now the question is with all these various enterprises where they're giving them percentages of vast amounts of money just for his name. What has he really contributed? And we're so enamored with rich people that sometimes I think we're afraid to ask, well, how'd you get your money?
Yeah, really.
And this whole debate just makes me nuts. Also, when I hear, because did they come up with crypto? Did they if they can fly a drone? I doubt it. All these enterprises that they attach their name to, they have absolutely nothing with the founding, the development. They have no risk with their money developing these businesses, and they just drop it in their lap, and no one seems to care. I mean, the people reporting, why can't they step back for a second and think about how this money is being lavished on them and how undeserving they are? And I think that puts a better context in what's going on than just, sort of generally passing by those aspects. So
Richard, I don't think anybody necessarily thinks they're deserving, but, let's face it, the money is a means to an end. I don't know if you guys heard one of our newscasts earlier said that, I think it was, that Belgium or a country like it that was just excused from having any tariffs. It was something for the diamond business. And so the jewelers got together and they're in the process. They gave it to the ambassador to give to Trump this emerald and diamond encrusted ring that is for Trump as a thank you. I mean, everything is for sale now. I don't think they even hide it. I mean, Joel, Brian, do you think they're making any effort to hide what they're doing?
We in the World Escort podcast, we have a 10-part series. We're most of the way through it, which we've subtitled "Who Benefits." A couple points I want to make. Well, first of all, we have an episode coming out in a couple weeks with, I think his title was an executive director or assistant director,
executive director
at Transparency International, which is the foremost anti-corruption nonprofit organization, and they work globally. And his take on the direction of the United States of America over the past decade and the accelerating decline here in terms of corruption at the federal level is really eye-popping. Astute listeners to our episodes will note that Brian and I take a slightly differing emphasis in what interests us. I don't think we have any disagreement. But one thing we do agree on is that the corruption is not limited to the Trump family and may not even be primarily profiting the Trump family, although it is astounding and unprecedented how much they are raking in. And we have episodes that look at various topics, whether economic sector or social sector topics, and trying to identify who in the family or in the inner circle in the cabinet has the financial interest. And just as one example, who are the quote-unquote peace negotiators in this regime? It's Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, neither of whom has any expertise or background in diplomacy or foreign policy or negotiation.
And one of whom has immense conflicts of interest.
Both of them do. They're both real estate, in the real estate industry. And who do you think is going to benefit from rebuilding, whether it's in Gaza or Iran or Russia or Ukraine?
Is that a trick question?
It's not going to be Brian Endless. Hopefully I'll get a piece of it.
If you've been investing with the Kushner Group,
might have been a good idea.
Yeah, and don't you think it's interesting that Jared is supposed to be helping to negotiate this peace deal when Jared is financially tied to United Arab Emirates, to Qatar, to Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's incredible. And we take it, the Trump administration, so Donald Trump made $2.2 billion last year, just came out this week.
Well, he and his family.
He and his family, that's correct. What we don't see, and we've talked about this on the podcast, is since Trump got elected to office, since he took office, the top 50 families in the country have made collectively over $2 trillion billion.
Right.
It is incredible, and they are controlling the policies of our country. They're the people behind it. Peter Thiel funding, J.D. Vance. He's the only reason J.D. Vance exists as far as we know about him.
And Peter Thiel, by the way, has fled to Argentina because he's worried about the political direction of the United States of America. Well, get your thumb on the
he hasn't fled yet.
blackout button.
He hasn't fled yet, but he did move his family there, which says something too. But it is incredible how much corruption is there.
Yeah.
And the biggest issue we have now is, again, it's not just Trump. It's built up to that point. But this starts with the plan that's in Project 2025.
Correct.
Which is if you take over the Congress and the Senate and the courts, all the president and the executive have to do is start doing things, anything they want to. It doesn't matter if it's legal or not. And at some point, somebody will challenge them, and maybe the courts will overturn it a few years down the road. But the purpose of this all is to make profits for people. There's nothing else to it. The other side of it is, and the caller was getting into this a little bit, thank you, we're looking at the difference between money and power. Their estimates, I've done a lot of this with the Come Together Project. Your first $30 million, which sounds like an insane amount of money, that is wealth you'll use for your family. That's generational wealth. Maybe up to $100 million. People still think about that as money because there are still things you can conceivably spend that on. Once you get over $100 million, it's not money anymore. And once you get into the billions, it is now power. And that is how rich people think about it, and how most of us don't realize that when we talk about them accumulating money, they are accumulating power, the ability to influence other people, the ability to do whatever they want to do. And that's incredibly significant.
And, as a fellow political scientist, right, it goes back to someone that we've never met, one of the first luminary American political scientists, Richard Fenno, right? His whole message, politics is a study of whom, right? Who benefits, who's doing what to whom, who's getting what from whom. There's still not enough general attention to. It's starting to turn maybe with this last report, but it's still focused on the Trumps and not on the broader corruption and control of our society, right? Whether it's media or anything else.
And that's the idea, is to distract from it. So a lot of what Trump's doing doesn't have any purpose other than distraction from the real things that are going on, and we're not supposed to look behind the curtain. That is an enormous amount of what's going on here.
Yeah, remember, Joan, I said, the Epstein files are the distraction. People need to be looking at this.
Yeah. Guys, I want to try to squeeze in one more call before we have to break for news. Heidi has been on the line. She is calling from Beverly. Hey, Heidi, thank you so much for the call today. You're on with me and Brian and Joel. What would you like to talk about today?
Okay, well, hi. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Thanks, Heidi.
I just wanted to you're welcome. I just wanted to mention that you were talking about air conditioning. Earlier, where you said that it only goes 20 degrees cooler than the outside temperature.
When we had that last heat wave back a million years ago, and I hope air conditioning's better now, but that's what I was told.
I hope so too. Yeah, well, I just had one installed yesterday, so. And then my power went out today, so.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it just came back on. It came back on about a half hour ago, so that's good. Anyway, so the thing about air conditioning is that it is not meant to cool things off. It is meant to lower the humidity.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So even if it's only 20 degrees cooler, it still seems cooler than that because it's drier.
Correct.
And I can attest to that because it made quite a difference in my house yesterday after I had it installed.
Hey, you're talking to someone who's got a 300-gallon saltwater aquarium system in his home that evaporates 7 gallons of water a day.
Oh my
so
God.
the air condition definitely, is necessary to dehumidify.
I used to think
it's great in the winter. Never get a shock when I touch the light switch.
I used to think Joel was
smart. I
smart.
was going to say that's like your humidifier in the winter.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. Heidi, thank you for that little bit of science.
Yeah.
I will add that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Also, I texted yesterday about Megan Mullally and Ice Boy.
Yes.
I don't know if you got that or not. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was getting the air conditioner installed, I had to turn the radio off, and so I could talk to the people that were here.
You said that she had a great voice.
Oh, yeah, she was. Yeah, she did several shows at the Drury Lane Water Tower. And by the way, I started there with the bicentennial year, 1976.
Wow.
It was just when it first opened, and it was in July. I'm not sure it was the beginning of July. I know that because it was around my birthday, and my birthday is the 5th. So I'm not sure exactly when I started there, but it was that week. And that was also the year I graduated from high school, too. So.
Oh, my goodness, you're a baby.
Yeah.
Well, Heidi, thanks so much for the call.
Yeah.
Joel and Brian. Go ahead.
We were so sick of the bicentennial by that time because there was so much hype, starting like 2-3 years before that. And so they try to make us, for our gowns, they try to make us wear red, white, and blue gowns. And we're like, no way.
Well, thank you, Heidi. I am so glad you are a first-time caller, and I hope you will make it a habit. We are going to take a break for news. We will all be back with more of our callers right after this.
Remember when you get to work to hop over to WCPT820.com or the TuneIn Radio app and stream The Stephanie Miller Show. Weekdays 8 to 11 a.m. on Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter. WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
I am joined by political science professors Brian Endless and Joel Ostro. We are spending the day taking your calls. Let's go to the phone lines right now. Dave from Hoffman Estates is on the line. Hey, Dave, how are you?
Hey, Joan. Hey, professors. As of, like what the last caller mentioned about 1976, and I got to thinking the difference between 76 versus today. The incoming president and the outgoing president actually liked each other, and and in fact, Ford and Carter had made a deal to read at each other's funeral. And of course, obviously, Ford couldn't do it for Carter. His grandson or his son did. Read, but they had made a deal like that. They got to be really good friends,
Yep, most of the presidents like each other. Most of the presidents, living presidents, like each other. I wondered if Trump didn't come to the Obama opening because he didn't want to come, but apparently he was not invited. No, he was not invited.
No, he doesn't get invited to those things. No. Although this is a Donald Trump thing. I don't think this is a presidency going down. Everybody in New York who knew him hated Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He was a socialite who everybody avoided. So
except for Epstein.
Right. Well, Epstein may or may not have spent Epstein might have held his nose when he was with Trump. Who knows?
Well, apparently everybody does.
He's just not a likable guy.
No, he isn't. Though I've been reading Regime Change, the Maggie Haberman, Jonathan Swan book, and apparently when Trump was elected the second time, Joe Biden invited him. They have their little, tea or coffee at the White House. And Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan report that Trump was very, very flattering to Biden, very flattering. And, what's happened with Hunter is terrible. And if you ever need any help, just reach out to me. And, it's terrible what the Democratic Party did to you. And he said, Joe, I think if you'd have stayed in the race, you could have beat me. And they say, Haberman and Swan say, it's possible that those nice comments were meant to elicit some negativity from Biden about how poorly he was treated by his party. But he did not do that. And to the point where apparently Donald Trump also called the family up and wished them a happy Thanksgiving or something. It said that Biden's aides were kind of like talking to him like, dude, this guy isn't for real. That he's got an angle or he's playing you. And Joe Biden was didn't want to hear it until Joe Biden saw who Trump was nominating for positions of power and realized that his son Hunter Biden and other people in his administration were greatly at risk. And that's when apparently he decided to issue the pardons. And also he felt very betrayed by the fact that Trump had been so nice to him and so complimentary and so offering of support and help. You know, like, dude, please, politicians are supposed to be wiser than that, more cynical than that. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, I think Biden missed the memo from Trump's first administration because the people who were there talked about him. We know the man is that Trump is completely transactional. He goes from one person to the next and doesn't care what he said before. And we know that he wants to be in good with people who are in power. He wants people in power to like him. He doesn't care who they are. So same thing with Mondami in New York. He was nice to him when he came in, even though the two of them have absolutely nothing in common whatsoever.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Claire, who's on the line from Chicago. Hey, Claire, you're on with me and Brian and Joel. Go ahead.
Hi. Good afternoon. Do you know who Professor Alan Lichtman is?
Yeah.
I know the name.
Of course. And, yeah, he has a he is a historian, taught at Boston University. I think he still does. Anyway, he has a YouTube channel, and he was talking about James Carville and warns that he's got this idea to create he's proposed a schism, division, a split within the Democratic Party against the progressive social democrats who were selected by the voters, that they should leave the party. And he says that such a split would ensure that right-wing Republicans continue to hold power for the foreseeable future, with the likely loss of our democracy. He says making sure that Trump and his cronies don't destroy democracy is the only thing we need to should be concerned about, the most important and only thing right now. And this idea for a schism he seems more upset about having progressive Democrats within the Democratic Party than Trump's fascism. So,
I follow James Carville on social media, and I must say, I haven't seen any posts recently, and so I haven't heard that. But I think, and you guys can tell me what you think. I think that the people who are panicking and being so hyperbolic about the election of a few Democratic socialists, I think they need to take a chill pill. First of all, people in different districts are different, and they want different kinds of representatives. One. Two, when there was a lot of conservative Democrats, like people who were anti-abortion, people like me were told we're a big tent and vote blue no matter who. And, it's okay that we have Democrats that are wildly conservative and out of step with people. Now, all of a sudden, we get people who want, to make sure that poor people have enough food. And that's supposed to be a bridge too far. I'm sorry. I don't like it. I don't buy it.
I got 3 points. I'll be really quick on all three of them. Number one, I think you'll agree with this, Brian. Those centrist Democrats have largely profited from big pharma and big oil and all of the rest, and the deregulation and consolidation, and so they feel threatened by any kind of change to that part of the system. So that's number one. Number two. You're right that people in different districts have different views, and it's kind of hypocritical from those people who talked about Big Tent. But number three, and this is probably where we may disagree, but I think if you're focused on the midterm elections, and I've been saying this for like a year now, I just don't see those as saving us. And we are long past the need for a general strike and sustained protest by the American people against the collapse of our democracy, which really goes all the way to the Supreme Court, which is no longer a defender of the Constitution. It's hostile to the Constitution.
I'm going to agree, and half agree on these, Joel. The first two I'm not even going to talk about. You're both absolutely, all three of you are absolutely right about it. In terms of where we are now, there's a couple things happening. First, I don't think we can overstate how important it is that different districts do have different sensibilities. And if you're in a very conservative district, you're not going to have people who call themselves, Democratic, social democrats win. They won't get it there, and they shouldn't get it there. And that's that's fine. Maybe that'll change over time. I think the election's still important. Joel and I do disagree on this one. I do think that there can be a lot of pushback, and you can get some of the checks and balances back if the Democrats take either house. I am not a Democrat.
But that's the problem with the if.
Right. Well, and they do have to take either one. It looks more likely in the House than the Senate. It does look possible.
They're not going to be allowed to.
Well, yes. Now
that's why we need the protests now, or the elections won't matter. It's too late to wait till November.
The Mike Johnson question is important. Does Mike Johnson actually seat people? And that's the one that is hanging out there. That's the point where we lose democracy. That's the point where we get past the Constitution. I think it would have been the same thing if the Supreme Court would have come in and blocked late mail-in voting and counting ballots.
In a lot of those states where you're counting on flip seats, MAGA controls the election commissions.
Yes.
Those votes aren't going to be counted, and without mass uprising to protect that, it's not even going to get to Mike Johnson, is my point. That's why I say the elections, like that process, that institution has been eroded to such an extent already that we need mass protests to even have a hope of bringing them back.
While I love the idea of mass protesting, completely support it, while Joel is around 100% thinks that the elections are gone, I think we're on the path to it, and we have to be incredibly vigilant, and mass protests would absolutely
I think
help
the
that.
midterms are going to be challenged. I think Donald Trump, who's at this point somewhat of a cornered animal, I think he is going to try to do anything he thinks he can get away with. And I think that people are expecting that. And I think people are determined to vote no matter what. But if he really goes overboard, Joel, he might, by overplaying his hand, actually bring about the kind of protest, the kind of work stoppages that you're talking about. You know, it's just like with the Supreme Court. They are so out of touch with the vast majority of Americans that I don't think they realize that they are planting the seeds of their own destruction. Because when Democrats finally retake power, one of the first things on the agenda is going to be expanding the Supreme Court, putting in term limits, maybe limiting the number, the quality or the types of cases the Supreme Court can hear. There is going to be a reckoning, and I don't understand why they think they can keep acting as outrageously as they have been acting against the will of the people, and that somehow they're just going to get away with it for the next 20 years.
I'm going to challenge. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, real quick.
I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that, Joan, because we know that at least in the case of Thomas and Alito, they go on a whole lot of junkets with a whole lot of rich people. And I'm not going to go out and say they've been bought, but other people have certainly said
I'll go out and say it. They've been bought.
and there are others, the same thing's happening. They're making rulings for the ruling class as opposed to for the people. They're making rulings for those who put their bosses, put the people who appointed them into office.
Well, and how did they get to the point where those people put them into office? Your friends at Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 are the ones that put them at the top of the list. Yeah, exactly. They're not Brian's friends. Sorry about that.
Well, people are saying, we've got to get to a break. People are saying Alito might resign even before the midterms.
Who cares?
Just in case there's a Democratic Senate because he wants Trump to replace him. I think that they've gotten too soft. There's too good a grift, and they're too egotistical to retire early. We're going to take a break. I'm going to leave that hanging in the air. We'll be right back after this.
Where facts matter.
Hey, it's Joan Esposito, and I want to tell you about 120 Life. 120 Life is a drink made with ingredients that help support healthy blood pressure. My mom had high blood pressure for much of her adult life, and for many of us, it runs in the family. 120 Life is a great tasting fruit and vegetable drink designed to improve your blood pressure. Put it to the test for a couple of weeks. Check your blood pressure. See if it works for you. Some people reported results in as little as 2 weeks, and I've been enjoying 120 Life because I love a fruit drink that isn't sugary sweet. To try it, go online to 120life.com. That's 120life.com. If your high blood pressure doesn't come down in 2 weeks, you can get a full refund. And you can get a 20% discount. Use the code JOAN, Joan, for 20% off your order. These statements have not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Don't turn that dial. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now.
A fair balance where the facts come out.
On WCPT 820.
It is, I had to look at the calendar. It is July 3rd, a day when many people...
Lady B's wearing a flag right now.
Good for her. It's the day many people have off for the 4th of July weekend. But political science professors Brian Endless and Joel Ostro are doing workmanlike efforts to keep us on the radio and keep the conversation interesting and helping me to respond to a lot of our callers. Lady B, let's go back to the phone lines. Our good friend Carl from Kankakee is on the line. Hello, Carl. How are you today?
I'm just a Yankee Doodle dandy.
Oh, good for you.
Hey, some people still send Joan flowers.
Yeah, that hasn't happened in a long time.
I just bring her vodka.
Yeah, but that has happened. That's what Joan wants these days. And by the way, guys, I want you to know that, we had all these callers that said, everybody used to like me back in the 80s when I was hot. Well, I got a text from Raymond McKenzie, and he said that he still has a crush on me. So there, I haven't completely lost it. Go ahead, Carl. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, a man with rose-colored glasses. No.
Really? He just can't see.
I was looking at the heat and our big celebration, 250 tomorrow. Behold the wrath of Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm. Yes, couldn't be a better time for thunderstorms.
You're going to celebrate 250 years of devastating me. Here's what you get back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It does seem like it's a little karma. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
I'm signing up for it. Shout out to everybody that called in, by the way, and always do. And to the West Coast folks, haven't heard them today, and professors, when I hear that you're going to be hosting or on the show, I can tune in with confidence.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm not sure why with Joel's on. But
Yeah. I was trying to think of a comeback about Brian.
I held my tongue.
It's an enigma, but I yesterday I called in Focus 50 years ago, compare and contrast the bicentennial 4th of July celebration with now. I was 23 years old back then, and I was in the midst of bicycling from Chicago to San Francisco with a bunch of other guys. Today, 50 years ago, we were in Cody, Wyoming, the heartland of America, the West, and we were celebrating at the rodeo grounds with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Wow.
The next day they had a big parade with John Wayne, the Duke, as the Grand Marshal. Compare and contrast to now.
Yeah. Yes. And I remember the bicentennial. And, you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but the bicentennial seemed to be focused on a celebration of immigrants.
Oh, yeah.
Remember
totally. 100%.
Yeah, the Statue of Liberty had just gotten cleaned or refurbished, and it was a big, we are a country of immigrants. Yay, us.
Absolutely.
Whew, what a difference.
Yeah.
This morning,
it's a sad difference.
This morning, I was thinking about today and 50 years ago, and popped in my head a soundtrack. Cue Paul Simon and Garfunkel, all gone to look for America.
Yeah.
People were out searching for the goodness that was evidently that was there. They found, if they searched, they found it.
And in the immediate aftermath of Watergate and Vietnam.
Yeah.
No.
No, unfortunately, it's all too easy to see the things we should be criticizing now.
Yeah. Do you think, guys, because, we have a tendency to think that the bad things that are happening now are just so incredibly bad. And yet I'm sure back, if somebody would have talked to us back then in the 70s or 80s, we would have had a ton of things that we thought were wrong and that we were complaining about. So I think there's always been a little bit of that, but it does, correct me if I'm wrong, it does seem different now. It does seem so much more massive now.
The difference now to me is just the grotesque inequality, the economic inequality, the fact that 400 people control something like 60% of our national wealth. We've never had anything like this before in this country, and the impact is really visible in every corner of society and on every topic in every way.
And you go back to the 70s, I completely agree on inequality. That's what I've been focusing on the past 15, 20 years. You go back to the 70s, we had absolute issues with race. We had issues with women's rights. We had issues with some other minorities. And yet the average family was able to afford a house, at least the average white family, that we should be clear on that, was able to afford a house on one salary and one blue collar salary. And since the 1980s, that's deteriorated to the point that right now we're looking at 70% of the American population is living unaffordably. They're below the level of affordability in the country. And the others are just barely above it until you get to 90 percentile.
And I mean, you and I, we all three of us, we remember the 70s. And I remember being in the 70s, and there was, on some level, a sense of I don't know, cynicism or apathy or disaffection. But at the same time, the reality was that women's rights were ascendant. Roe v. Wade had just been passed, and access to employment and education, like the exclusive all-male clubs or universities, were going co-ed. Civil rights were ascendant. It's not that we didn't have problems, but the civil rights movement had yielded real results.
Reverend Jackson was running for president for the first time in 76, I think it was.
I think it was 80.
Okay.
But the youth movement, the hippie movement had really brought the end of Vietnam through those mass protests. A corrupt law-breaking president had been removed from office. There were positive things that were happening, and I think people were generally aware. And there was a lingering criticism, and there were still certain problems, but I think there was also a certain degree, at least socially, of optimism that things could change for the better.
And internationally, we had alliances that made sense. We had great trade relationships at that point in time. The Cold War was winding down, it peaked toward the end of the 70s and then quickly wound down after that point in time. We were getting trade relations with China. Things were absolutely, just objectively better at that point in time. There were a lot less things that were problems for a lot less people.
Yep. And it's the opposite now.
There was a time when, families used to believe that their children would do better than them, whether that was more education, a better job. And, that's when I grew up. And man, oh man, I'm not quite sure when it went away, but it's gone now. People no longer believe their kids.
People went to college with the hope of getting a career so they could have a house and looking forward to having kids. Our students today, they see no hope for any of that.
It was 8 to 10 years ago I started to hear that from my students and was talking about it. Sometime in that time range, they just realized, and their parents realized, that the hope was gone, and we started talking about the American dream being gone. I think it's been being deteriorated for the past 40, 45 years, but we're at a point that, it's not there anymore for the vast majority of Americans.
We are going to take another break. Brian Endless, Joel Ostro, and I will be right back after this.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I am joined by political science professor Brian Endless from Loyola, political science professor Joel Ostro from Benedictine University. And I want to go back to something you guys were saying right before the break. How we were having this sort of golden era where there were gay rights, women were being given, power to own their own credit card, and were seen as viable, corporate candidates for jobs. And, then it sort of, at some point, culminated. We elected a black president. Do you think we went too far, too fast, and that's why we've had this reaction, let's do away with women's rights, let's do away with gay rights, and let's make sure all of our presidents are white and that we're a white Christian nation. Was it too much, too quickly, guys?
What are you saying? There should never have been a female television news anchor, Joan?
Aside from that.
Aside from that, okay, I'm just checking. But
I've heard people say that it was too much, too quickly. Actually, I even heard a few years ago a gay rights activist who's of our generation, my generation anyway, say that looking back on it, maybe, gay marriage and all this other stuff, maybe it was too much too quickly and there was bound to be a backlash.
I've always found that argument to be BS, although I do think the Trumpism in MAGA is a reaction to Obama, but I think it's less because he was black and more because we got hope and not enough change.
I think that's a part of it. The people are using race, they're using gender, they're using LGBTQ, they're using women to sell a small group. And I think what we've always seen, I don't think it's too fast. I think it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that tends to be the course of history. It happened with civil rights, happened with civil rights after the Civil War, it happened with civil rights after the 1960s. We take a few steps forward and then reactionary forces come back in and push us back in the other direction.
Fascism's a really big step backwards.
It is a giant step. And I think that's always the question when we take these steps backward. We shouldn't assume that the past is prologue. We need to say, hey, this is dangerous. And we had these things and they're being taken away. So, one of the great examples is questions of abortion. The first time women's rights have really gone backwards. And that's an amazingly important thing on the right to choice. And it's state by state now, but that's still a huge, huge issue for an enormous number of Americans. So we need to continue fighting to move it forward. And I do think, though, one of the things you see, and we're seeing it right now, when you get those reactionary forces pushing back, people realize they can't be as comfortable as they were. And they start coming out of their comfort zones. And we do get closer to Joel's mass protests that he wants, and that, obviously I would like to from what we've been talking about. But those things get into people's heads that, hey, maybe I can't be as complacent as I was here.
I talk to Rick Smith a lot. He does a radio show, and he comes from a very blue-collar world. He was a truck driver for much of his life, and still it talks to people like that all the time. And we've talked about a general strike, whether or not that's going to happen. And every time I've asked him about it for the last year and a half, he has said, nope, that segment of society that would have to be a big part of any action like that, they haven't felt the pain themselves, or they haven't felt the pain to a degree that's going to motivate them to be out in the streets.
Totally disagree.
Really?
10,000% disagree. History everywhere shows it doesn't matter who the people are who go to the streets. You get 3.7% of the population in the streets, you get political change. And until that is refuted somewhere on the planet, that holds as a principle. It doesn't matter who the 3.7% are now. If you got that many people out into the streets, you'd have a good chunk of that segment of the population that he's talking about. But you don't need the 400 richest families in the world, and they're not going to the streets. Even you're not going to get any of those 50 millionaire families out onto the streets, probably. But you don't need them. You need the other people to stop doing business with those. You get the 3.7 on the street, that shuts down the economy.
I think that's a piece of it. I agree with the 3.7 number. It's historically true, but I think we're in a relatively unique time here. And we have been set up since the late 1800s, early 1900s to have our labor movement undermined in ways that have not happened anyplace else in the world.
Like
and
what?
It is significant. Just go back to Taft-Hartley and some of the early stuff that was going on. We're not allowed legally to have general strikes. So labor unions could go to jail. Leaders could go to jail if they actually called for general strikes. I think the other factor is that people in power have taken advantage of the fact that we're very diverse and spread out. Not diverse in terms of number of people, but we're all over the place. And our working class, which to me is everybody who's not investing for a living, basically, it goes up to lawyers and doctors even, but our workers are insanely diverse and don't always see that they can do things. And now you add on to that, over the past 50 years, labor has been deteriorated even more, to the point that most people who are laboring have to work to live.
It's a conscious effort of the far right.
100%.
And the undermining the belief that we can actually do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. They want us to lose faith in government. They don't want us to just lose faith in this government. It is in any
No, they want
government.
us to lose faith in democracy.
Yes, absolutely correct. And they push the idea of democracy bad and bad for the economy and other things. And, democracy will hurt minorities. Well, there's one big minority it'll hurt, and that's the top 50 families that are out there.
Yep.
Yeah. Guys, let's go back to the phone lines. Al is on the line from Franklin Park. Hey, Al, you're on with me and Brian and Joel. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but, we got to remember that we're in a class war right now, and we got to pay attention to the guys behind the curtain that are controlling all the money. And they also control technology a lot. And
behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Brian, you want to jump in?
Al, I have a TikTok and YouTube page you should follow. It's the
Go ahead, Carl.
The Come Together Project. You have either read from my script or I think you're just a very smart person who came up with it yourself. But yeah, we 100% are. I like to avoid the words class war because they have been demonized. And people hear communism and they have no idea what that means, and socialism, they have no idea what that means. To me, it is very much the rest of us versus the tiny number of people at the top. And we need to get conscious of the fact that we're all working for a living. If you get a paycheck, whether you are a blue-collar worker, whether you are a janitor, an administrator, an office worker, or even a doctor or lawyer, you're getting a paycheck, you are a worker, you are in the same boat, you are closer to poverty than you are to ever being a billionaire. And it's only those people who invest for a living and who make money off of their money that are benefiting off of our current society. And the more we come to realize that we have a ton of things in common, the better. But those same people at the top are doing everything they can with culture wars and other issues to drive us apart and to stop us from getting that consciousness.
Yeah, we don't want to. We don't want anybody realizing that the wealthy people are the ones who are pulling the strings, because they want us to be all upset about trans people, and they want us to be all upset about immigrants. And when you're focusing on that, you're not focusing on the big picture.
They don't care. They just want us to be upset. They don't care what we're upset about. They don't give a hoot what we're upset about. They just want to take our money.
And they also love it, for instance, when the Democrats turn into a circular firing squad and you get the centrists who fight against the Democratic Socialists. And
I got one more point I'd like to throw in here.
Go ahead, Al.
That today is July 3rd. We are exactly 5 months from the election right now. And we have to be using July 4th as a way to say, hey, let's look at all the good things that have happened in our government, all the good people, that there have been, and work towards November 4th, which would be the day after the election, where we have to celebrate our wins. We got to be all about the election now.
123 days till the election. Let's thank you, Al. Thank you so much for the call. Let us go to the phone lines yet again. Vicky is on the line from Villa Park. Vicky, go ahead. We're here.
Hey, I think you're hot too, Joan. I'm
thank you, Vicky. I should have taken this call sooner.
I was going to say, I have two family members that were devastated by 2008, not by terms of what they lost, but the fact that they never have caught up to this day, almost 20 years later. I grew up with grandparents, and I heard all about the Great Depression, that they were starting a young family in the midst of that. I dread that we are about to have another crash along those lines, and the only bright side to me is that it might come far enough ahead of the election that it will get people out in the streets and out to the polls. I'm curious if the guests have any thoughts about this situation or any advice about it.
Oh, I definitely think it's unsustainable. This period. Our entire economy essentially is a Ponzi scheme now, right? It's just a huge
did you see
pyramid.
in the Wall Street Journal just this week that guy, I can't remember his name, the famous guy who saw the housing crisis coming? The guy who was part of the movie The Big Short.
Right. Yeah.
He is now selling all of any company he has stock in that has anything to do with AI.
Yeah.
Even a company like Caterpillar, because they're using AI for something or other. He is shorting every single one of those companies. He sees a big crash coming.
Yeah, there is. And to the caller's point, your family members haven't recovered. And unfortunately, they're like an enormous number of other people. I just saw the stat yesterday. Our unemployment is at a near record low rate again. It's looking fantastic. That is a complete BS statistic.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with the reality that human beings in America are facing.
Right.
We are underemployed. And since 2008, those people who were hurt, almost none of them have recovered to the point that they were. They're getting lesser jobs. They lost their houses, which were the only investments they have. They have no retirement savings, even worse than they did beforehand. And everybody has been progressing backwards except for those top few people.
100%.
And it is just absolutely horrific, the society that has been forced upon us. It's not that we fell into it. It's been pushed upon us.
And I do want to say that 2007, 2008 collapse should have been the spark that brought real change. That is why Barack Obama was elected to be president, because the people who voted for hope and change counted on the change because they experienced catastrophe, and what they heard was, we're going to have real systemic change. And we didn't get any of that.
Right. Well, and this is the messy part of democracy, and we study it in developing countries, but it's true in the United States, too. When you win an election on hope and change, you have to bring hope and change.
Yes.
And when you don't...
Especially when you have a supermajority in our Congress and our system.
When you don't, 4 or 8 years later, you have a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
my first problem with Barack Obama was that when he passed his health care plan, he didn't take on the insurance companies.
Well, and he didn't do it in 3 months. He let Congress, dilly-dally over the details.
Absolutely.
And squandered his opportunity. And Goldman Sachs still exists. I always circle around back to that. That Goldman Sachs should not exist anymore.
And you look at the only place in the world that stopped that was Iceland. Iceland stepped in and prosecuted a lot of bankers and put a lot of bankers in prison after that. That's the kind of system that we need, but we have been set up that people didn't even think about that. People were so busy being hurt that they didn't know where to go, and the information is controlled by the people who were making money and who were going to make more money afterwards. And it's a gigantic cycle. And this is really the thing that we've got to break out of. To the last caller, we've got to get that consciousness, which means, though, finding ways to get good information to people.
Well, I think that what you just pointed out is indicative of this mindset that has been around for a while now, that somehow you will never hold anybody who's rich or powerful to account. They can find the best lawyers. They've got the teams of lawyers. They can obfuscate. They can play fast and loose with tax laws. I think that there wasn't more of a call to put somebody in jail because of this feeling that, well, there's who are you going to be? That class is untouchable. That class is untouchable.
The rich promoted that false notion of too big to fail.
And here's the thing that I'm seeing now, and I talk about this once in a while because I'm a person who wants a social revolution. I want to see change in our society and our culture to get rid of those types of beliefs. My fear is we're going to have a violent revolution, which I think would be absolutely awful. But when you take people people down and you push them down long enough, you get violence. You get Luigi in Manhattan, and that's probably just the first of many cases. To me, to some extent, this is a question, do those people at the top want the French Revolution, or do they want to do some of the things that will ease the pressure and that will stop that, the boiling pot that's about to explode? I've got one recommendation I put out there, and of course, nobody listens to me. All they would have to, thank you, Joe. We all know that. All they would have to do is universal health care. Mm-hmm. And if they promoted universal health care and put it out there, I think the pressure valve would be released. Most of us would still be just as bad off, but we wouldn't notice it as much. And I really think that's the simple answer that somebody might get to eventually. But if they don't get to it, it's going to get very messy.
But Brian's right in the sense that...
I'm sorry, hang on just one second. Joel just said Brian's right.
Joel, would you like to say that again?
The comma comes later. In the sense that we need major constitutional change. Even your dog agrees, Joan.
Be quiet.
We need major constitutional change that only comes with some sort of revolution, social revolution, because the system as we have it, it doesn't work anymore. And the primary change we need is changes to our... Trump is right, but Trump is wrong. We need changes to the way we conduct elections and campaigns in this country if we're going to have a democracy.
I also really, really don't want constitutional change right now. We need the social and cultural change first, because I am horrified about what this society would put into a new constitution.
No, it's got to be part of that uprising. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are going to take a break. Lady B, why don't you, since we're in the last few minutes, why don't you close the phone lines? And when we come back, you kind of touched on something an issue I wanted to raise. Why is it that we don't seem to learn from history? I mean, maybe it's one thing to look back at the French Revolution and say, we're not learning that lesson, but we've forgotten the lessons learned in World War II, and that was not that long ago. I want to tackle that question with Brian Endless and Joel Ostro when we come right back after this.
You're listening to WCPT 820, because facts matter.
If you are interested in buying a new home or maybe refinancing the one you've got, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. They now have nearly 800 5-star Google reviews. Here's one from Mary. David is fantastic. He's always ready to help, whether buying, selling, refinancing, or helping with finances. He's patient, even with complicated issues, and he goes the extra mile when others wouldn't. I can't recommend him enough. You won't regret calling David for any of your mortgage issues. I'm recommending him to my daughter and anyone needing a mortgage. So Mary called for help. She needed to consolidate her debt. She was so thankful for David's guidance that she posted a 5-star review. If you want that same outstanding service that Mary got, call Team Hochberg now, 855-563-2843, or go online, 56david.com. Team Hochberg has helped me and thousands of our listeners, but they can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or go online, 56david.com. ACM Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 643-114.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Before we went to break, I told Brian Endless and Joel Ostro that I wanted to have them weigh in on why it seems that we don't learn from history, not just far ago history, but current history. I mean, who we are was at the end of World War II doesn't seem to be who we are now. We seem to have forgotten the importance of those lessons and those values. And I'm going to tell you both right now. We are coming up against the end of the show, so we got about 4 minutes here. Not that I'm saying that you're verbose, but I'm just pointing out that we have about 4 minutes left. So
you get the first minute.
Okay.
Too many people take Brian's class and not enough take my classes. Okay. How's that for an answer?
Okay.
I think now it's what we've been talking about. There's a conscious movement on the far right to confuse us, to manipulate information. for private gain of a very small percentage of people who control an enormous percentage of our lives, not just our economy. So I think that's a big part of it.
I think it actually is a little bit simpler than that, and it's been around a long time. History is controlled by those in power.
Well, that's kind of what I said. You just put it differently.
Yeah, I just said it more academically than you did. History is controlled by those in power. You look at our education system. Our education system is purposeful. You look at the attempts to undermine higher education. Why do people in higher education get more liberal? Because they get more information. And as Stephen Colbert told us, reality has a well-known liberal bias when you look at it, and it was a joke, but he was absolutely right. The people in power want us to have the information that supports their perspective, that supports the directions they want to take us, that supports their power and supports their money. And this has been true forever, but again, we see it even more in the current age with so much media that's available to everybody, and now with the rich controlling all of that media, whether it's social media or quote-unquote news.
And really important point is it's the people in power. This is not an exclusive movement of fascists or the right. No. Mao wanted to control information. Lenin and Stalin controlled information. Although I don't know that Stalin was left, but it's a feature of power. Those who control the resources, whether economic or political.
Yeah, you come into power and you rewrite the history books. That's
sure.
just standard in most countries that have autocracies and power changes.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're making a concerted effort to change our educational system right now. But, you know, there are some of us still alive whose parents or older relatives were in World War II. I mean, we learned lessons about doing the right thing and being the good guy and having character. And it's like somebody like that is considered a sucker.
Absolutely. But think about it. This has been pushed on us. There was a pushback against civic education, which is what we used to have. And now people who have civic consciousness are looked at as suckers because we have been taught that people who have civic consciousness are suckers. We're taught that people who are altruistic are suckers. We're taught that individualism is more important than communitarianism. Those were all World War II values in the United States that lasted through Kennedy and really up until the 1980s.
I agree.
Oh, ooh, okay.
Wow.
Thank you both so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you spending a big portion of your holiday afternoon here with me and our listeners. It is always so much fun and so informative to have these discussions with you two.
Well, we love being on with the hottest radio host in town.
Oh, there you go. I forgot about that part.
He got to it before I did.
Yeah, there's that too. So thank you
Joan.
for acknowledging it, the truth of it. Okay. I hope you have a great 4th of July. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez is next. She is live, and one of her guests is Paul Shivari. Yes, that Paul Shivari. And I bet he's going on Patty's show to talk about the fact that tomorrow he is filling in for Edwin Eisendrath. Yes, Edwin pre-recorded an interview with Tom Nichols from The Atlantic, and we're going to have that. But Paul is going to be talking with Kevin Schultz, who's a professor of history at UIC, and also William Muck, you guys' friend, professor of political science from North Central College. And I also want you to know that even though it's a holiday weekend, Out Chicago with Scott Duff and Ellen Miller is going to be live this Sunday. They're on from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., and they are both showing up like the rest of us weirdos who don't seem to understand what a holiday weekend is, except maybe for Edwin. He's one of the only ones smart enough to go somewhere. But even he pre-recorded an interview, so there's that. So Patty Vasquez is next. Paul Shivari is going to tell us about what he's going to do on Sunday when he fills in for Edwin Eisendrath. Scott Duff and Ellen Miller are going to be here live in the studio this Sunday. I will be back Monday, July 6th. I'm going to be talking to retired former Major General Randy Manor. Always an insightful and informative interview, because there have been some stuff about the military is starting to get a little tired of Pete Hegseth, and more of them are being pretty vocal about it. We're going to have that interview on Monday. I'm also going to talk to Bobby Kogan, who, as I've said before, is literally the only human being who can make talking about budgets fascinating and interesting. So I will see you Monday at 2 p.m. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Lady B. Have a great holiday weekend, guys, and good night.